The
court is now back in session. And again, the floor is given to the defense counsel for Noon Chia to put further questions to the witness.
Yes, Mr. Witness. We were speaking about the interrogation of Yin Sambat before the break. Let me read to you what you said in E3/429. Your statement to the co-investigating judges. English ERN 00403-920, Khmer 00403-908. You said, and I quote, Son Sen said that Chakrai responded violently when he read the confession. Son Sen then decided to continue the investigation before any arrests were made. End of quote. Can you tell us what kind of investigations Son Sen conducted before any arrests were made?
After having heard the tape of the confession of Yim Sambat, I was also there because Son Sen called me. There were myself, Chakrai, Saum, and an assistant to the general staff. So there were a few of us, Son Sen, Chakrai, myself, and Saum. After we listened to the tape confession of Yim Sambat, Chakrai became agitated, and the word he used was rather serious. Of course, I cannot imitate what he said at the time. He said that there was no other line of traitors. There was only Yim Sambat. And at the time, Son Sen made a proper presentation, and that Yim Sambat was interrogated and not beaten. And Son Sen said Chakrai was agitated. And the way Son Sen worked was similar to that of the party center as well as of the police offices. They try to find all the related elements before a decision was made for the arrest. That is, after those elements were found and investigation complete. So the evidence was that Yim Sambat threw a grenade behind the royal palace. That was one element. Then they searched for other elements before someone was arrested. For example, regarding the arrest of Chakrai or Brother Chuk, they tried to find all those relevant elements before a decision was made. For example, when Phum had to make that decision. Regarding the arrest of Chuk, Phum was called for a meeting at the party center before that decision was made.
I'm specifically interested in the words that you used in that excerpt. Son Sen decided to continue the investigation. What did he do other than maybe continue interrogating Yin Sambat? What kind of investigation methods did Son Sen apply after the grenade incident?
Chakrai was given to Son Sen by the Pol Pot's order. So they did whatever they could in order not to Jack Gray raise any suspicion. They usually would send Jack Gray on this assignment or that assignment. And allow me to give you an example. I got married on the 20th of December 75, and Son Sen said I could take rest for 10 days, but 3 days after I was sent to Kampong Sam, and Jack Gray also went. And Nat went with Jack Gray so that he could monitor the activities of Jack Gray. So they usually would send him off trail in order to check on his activities, and at that time they spoke about a ship coming to the port, and Jack Gray was sent there.
So would Chakrai be followed? Was his division infiltrated? I think, Mr. President, there's something wrong with. Do you hear me? Can you hear me, Mr. Witness? So my question is, do you know what specific investigation methods were used before Chakrai was arrested? Was he monitored? Was he followed? Let's try again. Can you hear me? So my question is, Mr. Witness, do you know what kind of investigations methods were used against Chan Chakrai? Was he monitored? Was he being observed? Was his unit or regiment infiltrated? What is it exactly that Son Sen did to gather evidence against Chan Chakrai?
There was no infiltration of forces. Regarding the grenade incident, Yim Samad was not the only one who was subject to investigation. People who were implicated in Yim Samad's confessions were also under investigation. And Nat would constantly follow Chan Chakrai. As 21, if someone confession was of high interest, then we would receive strict instructions to do properly, that is in terms of interrogating that individual.
Let me ask it more concretely. Do you know what was done between the 4th of April 1976 and the 19th of May 1976 when Chan Chakrai was arrested?
was not there when Nat heads to monitor Chan Chakrais at the General Staff Office. However, those who links to Division 170 were gradually arrested, and when names were mentioned in the confessions, then those names of those individuals were subject to be under surveillance as well. Chakray and Susam were removed, and Stock became the secretary of the division. He was the person who was trusted.
Well, let me take you to a document, the content of which you were unaware of at the time, but a document that you saw in your case file much later. That is in your binder, document number 2. That is, Mr. President, E3/183, English ERN 00183-393 and further, Khmer 00019-108 and further, French 00292868. And specifically, I'm interested in page 11 of that document, which is in Khmer 00019-121, French 00292881, and English 00183-403. These are minutes of the standing committee meeting of 9 October 1975. And on that page that is in your document, a subject of discussion within the standing committee was Comrade Mean and the division. Let's ask you first, is Comrade Mean the same person as Chan Chakray?
Yes, Comrade Mean was Chan Chakray.
Now in this document, which as I said is dated on the 9th of October 75, it turns out that Chan Chakray is already monitored closely in politics, in ideology, etc. It says in these minutes, from his previous history, we may get the idea he could not stand it and fled, but he did not join the enemy. He came into Ankar, and Ankar sent him to the base. And then it says, must be careful about speech that he is seen as a traitor. If we use the word traitor, that is serious. Finding his history through our own networks is better. And Comrade Mean was formerly close to Comrade Chuk. And it ends with saying that Comrade Mean has many good points. Now again, at the time you were unaware of the content of this document. But is it known to you, or was it known to you at the time, that before the grenade incident, or the grenades incident, Comrade Chakray was already monitored very closely?
I know part of the events. Defense counsel, you should proceed with further questions, as he just responded that he knew part of the event, and if he make a lengthy response, probably you would interrupt. So please further with your question so that the witness can respond to those questions.
Indeed, but I saw him going through the pages, and I thought he was going to provide more evidence. That's why I was waiting, Mr. President. But again, Mr. Witness, did you know that Comrade Min or Chan Chakrai was already closely monitored before the grenade incident of the 4th of April? And if yes, what did you know?
I started to know about the event when Sun Sen sent me and Nat with Chakrai to Kampong Saum. After we met, Sun Sen said the situation at present was difficult because Chakrai has quite a senior position, and if he were to incite another group, it will be very difficult to control him. For that reason, we had to come up with different assignments for him to go here or there. And in this case, that he was sent on a mission to Kampong Saum with us. And that was the first time that I knew about that.
Let me turn to another document. I'm not sure whether you are aware of that document. It is in your binder under tab number 32. Mr. President, that is document E3/13. Khmer ERN 00052 402 and further. English 00940336 and further, French 00334972. Mr. Witness, these are minutes of a meeting of secretaries and deputy secretaries of divisions and independent regiments on the 9th of October 1976. If you have found it, and maybe my first question is it correct that you were not present at this meeting?
Thank you. Based on my recollection, I did not attend the meeting on 9 October 76. No, I did not attend that meeting.
Do you know why it was that you were not present, or were you not allowed to be present at meetings attended by secretaries and deputy secretaries of divisions and independent regiments?
work was rather separate from theirs. If they dealt with tanks or radios or telecommunications, I would not have any comments to make on those topics. And of course, they did not understand the nature of our work as well. If I made report of this particular confession or that confession, they would not have a clue of what I talked about. That's why I did not attend that meeting.
Now in the meeting, the grenade incident is being discussed on English ERN 00940-341, Khmer 00052405, and French 0033495. We can read that the history of Chakrai is that he was originally in the north, that there were previously incidents of guns being fired near the Fine Arts School and leaflets being thrown near the Royal Palace. Then in early April 76 they threw grenades and threw leaflets again. And then a little bit further, Son Sen is speaking and is talking to division commanders, including Division Commander Un of Division 310. And he says, the enemies to the east. The key plan of the enemy of the east, the Vietnamese, with the Soviets behind them, was to attack from the inside through the traitorous forces of Ya, Kieu Mies, Chuk, and Chakrai. What they would have liked in terms of an attack from the outside was to attack in the Czechoslovakian and Angolan style. But this was merely a moral boost because given our situation, this was not something the enemy could do. End of quote. Mr. Witness, do you remember Son Sen speaking to you ever about the key plan of Ya, Chuk, Chakrai, with the Vietnamese supporting them?
Witness, please hold on. And International Deputy Co-Prosecutor, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. It should be very clear, and Council has skipped over these parts of the minutes, that much, if not all, of the information Son Sen is reporting in this meeting is described as coming from the responses or answers of the people who had been arrested. And specifically, if you look at page, I have just the English page, but one of the pages cited by Council 00940-341 in English states, from the responses of these men, we knew of a certain number of their plans, end of quote. Our position is that the document may be used because it shows the use of confessions by the leaders, but in terms of the being used to show the truth of these plans, it should be very clear that this information is coming from confessions and is not admissible for that purpose.
If I may respond, Mr. President, that is speculation on the side of the prosecution. We have established that Chan Chakrai was monitored already extensively. The witness on multiple occasions has talked about surveillance, other monitoring proceedings, investigation methods. Simply saying that anything that was ever known by Son Sen or others must have as its only source confessions is speculation. So I think, in general terms, this question I should be able to ask this question.
briefly, it's not speculation, it's right in the document itself. Second, it's only counsel who's described investigation methods. The witness has said nothing other than someone monitored or watched this person.
President, the objection of the International Deputy Co-Prosecutor is appropriate because the question is based on the content of the confession. Mr. Witness, please do not respond to the question lastly put by Counsel Copper.
Mr. Witness, tomorrow I will come back to you and read from evidence that has nothing to do with S21, so I'll be revisiting this subject extensively. Let's park that subject for a second. Let me talk about the investigation method of monitoring or surveilling people. What is it that you know about that in general? What was done other than interrogating people?
It is difficult for me to comment in relation to the surveillance on new people. But what I can say is that people had been evacuated from Phnom Penh and other provinces, and they were placed together with the base people or the old people. They work together and live together collectively. However, the base people had the authority to supervise the newcomers or new people, and the district and village levels had the authority to report to the upper echelon on those people, I mean the newcomers.
Well, let me read to you two things that you said to investigators. First, something you said in document E3/65, English ERN 00147-523, Khmer 00146-483, French 00147-898. You said, regarding those for whom it had been decided to arrest, if they had important status, they were monitored extremely closely before they were arrested. And in another document, E3/451, at English ERN 002-04339 until 340, Khmer 00187-65051, and French 00186-170. You said, and I quote you, normally implicate.
President, once again, Counsel Copy reads slower the EON numbers and also the document identity number. Otherwise, the interpreters cannot follow your reading of the EON's number, and you will waste the time to repeat it again.
E3/451, Khmer 0018765 English 002-04339 till 340, French 00186-170. And this document E3/451, Mr. Witness, you said normally
President, again, there's issue with the EON numbers and document identity number. Perhaps something went wrong with the interpretation system that makes the interpreter could not hear what you were saying. President, the AV unit said there is no interpretation equipment error. I remind you again, Councillor Kope, to read slower the EON numbers. The interpreter did not follow you a while ago.
Well, I'm happy to read it a third time, but E3/451, English 00204-339 till 340, Khmer 00187-650 till 51, French 00186-170. Now, again, for the third time, Mr. Witness, in this document, E3/451, you said normally implication in one confession was not sufficient for a person to be arrested. It had to occur several times. Furthermore, a number of suspects were under close surveillance, and we waited for such implication in the confession, as was the case for Chakrai and Pang. End of quote. Is that something you said? Is that correct? That implication in one confession was not sufficient?
Thank you. Concerning the fact that a one-time confession was not justified for the arrest, only one confession could not justify for the arrest. In principle, the principle set by Pol Pot during the 17th April celebration, 10 confessions could be the justification. He said Chakrai was under surveillance or was suspected for a long period of time, and as long as there were sufficient confession, Chakrai would be arrested. And there were implications in the case of Won in the confession of prisoners, but the instruction needed to be obtained from the upper echelon. Pang, at the beginning, protected a cadre from being arrested, but later on he agreed to the arrest. We were advised from time to time that sometimes confession should be examined thoroughly. The enemies may have the way to change their confessions.
Let me see if I can try it differently. Is it possible, Mr. Witness, that you had no idea at the time what kind of surveillance or monitoring happened in relation to people who were subsequently arrested? Because the only thing that you did was read and analyze confessions. Is it correct that you had no idea what kind of investigation was going on outside your workplace?
I could just say in one word. Some people were arrested based on one or two words in the confessions, were under surveillance for a long time ago already. So they were arrested not based on the confession sometime, but because of surveillance. Some people who worked well and could adhere to the lines of the party, they were considered good.
The reason I'm confronting you with the possibility that because of your position in the hierarchy, you might have not had any idea what was going on in terms of investigation is what was written down in the last joint plan about the implications against Sao Pim and Runim, but more specifically about because of a document that was shown to you earlier, I think by the President of the Chamber. That's document E3/1604. It is document 12 in your binder. It is an annotation from you on Koi Toon's confession. The document, the Khmer ERN is 00006757. I repeat, 00006757. Maybe we can have it on the screen as well. And English 00773088. And in that annotation on Koi Toon's confession, it says he will write everything about Comrade Nim and Brother Pim's story. So here, Koi Toon in his confession is implicating Nim and Pim. Mr. Withers, do you recall that annotation?
The annotations were made by the brothers up the line without my knowledge. And that information was leaked to me when Sun Sen was on phone with me, that he said that Kun attacked our forces. So the annotations were made secretly by the superiors above. And I was told secretly by Sun Sen that Kun attacked our forces.
Now this annotation is dated 8 March 1977, and it talks about Koi Toon's implication of Runim. Do you remember when Runim was arrested?
Pranyam was arrested in 1978. I do not recall the month when he was arrested. The arrest of Nyama was before the arrest of Pim.
Is it correct that Runim was arrested sometime May, June 1978?
That may have been so in May. Probably it may have happened in May, June, the event at the east started to rise, and the arrest of Pum started to be considered.
Now, are you able to tell us why it took 12, 13 months before Nim was arrested? He was implicated already by Koitun in March 77. I believe Brother Pim was already implicated much earlier. Do you have any idea why it took so long for Ru Nim to be arrested?
President, please hold on, Mr. Winner. You may proceed, co-prosecutor.
Yes, Mr. President. I think counsel is testifying himself here, and he read a few words from this annotation, but he left out the subsequent comments by Son Sen, in which he clearly states that he considered this to be a fabrication. So to then ask why it took this long from this date after he was implicated, Son Sen says right in this annotation he considers this to be a fabrication.
Well, I think the prosecution is testifying now on behalf of the witness. But the question still stands, and let me move away from this document. That's fine with me. Mr. Witness, do you remember what it was the first time that Sao Pim and Ru Nim were implicated?
I do not remember it. Concerning Brother Pum, I was myself interested in his case. In December 1975, that I was interested in his case, Mochamran ordered the killing of a cadre. His name was Kun Kiat. I said at the time, before the arrest of a party member, there should be a decision from the center. It was said at the time that Sok Chamran was the member of the center. It was from that time onwards that I was interested in the case of Pum. It was not good to arrest a party member without the decision or instruction from the center. I do not know about the case of Nyum. When was he so concerned by the party? But for the case of Pum, it would happen like what I described. Pum defended Li Pai, Yang Mon, the general staff of the army, and he used some of the people from the prison who to become the secretary of Pierang, for example. There was another case. He expanded the forces by using the former Lone soldier in the army. There were different scenarios and cases. For example, he asked the soldier of the East to wear the enemy's uniforms, and he advocated his action at the time by saying soldiers of the Khmer Rouge were poor. So he had contradictory views with the superiors. That made me interested in his case. Later on, I do not know which individual implicated Pum Ho was so scared at the time. And Son Sen was asked. Son Sen replied that Brother Pum did not betray, but later on I was told by Sun Sen that Ho should not be allowed to read any documents, secret documents of S-21. It might have impacts on cadres. So not one confession could be the justification for the arrest of the big brother Pum. He had been under surveillance for quite a long time before he was arrested in June. There was one meeting of the political bureau of the party center, and after that meeting, subordinates of Brother Pum were arrested, and Pum did not know at the time. So after having the confession, one individual was never arrested immediately.
So then my very concrete question is, do you remember how long it took before the upper echelon was finally convinced that Sao Pim was a traitor? How long until between the first time Sao Pim was implicated and the ultimate moment of him being definitely suspected as traitor and his suicide on the 3rd of June 78? How long did that period of surveillance last?
Your question is not based on the real situation. How long was he arrested after the party was convinced? That was the arrest. The decision to arrest was based on the practical situation, whether there would be the reaction of the mass public. The arrest of a big cadre or high-profile cadre would be met with the reaction of the public. So there was no clear principle of how long a cadre, a high-profile cadre, could be arrested. The center would have to consider thoroughly before the arrest happened. Otherwise, the society would be in chaotic situation.
Let me try it in another different way, Mr. President, Mr. Witness. Sorry. How many times was Pim implicated before it was decided that he was betraying Democratic Kampuchea? 10 times, 15 times, 20 times? Do you know?
At S-21, I myself did not total how many times Brother Pum was implicated. But at S-21, Ho was so scared because he learned that the high-profile cadres were implicated gradually. He went to seek advice from Brother Kiel, and Brother Kiel later on advised me not to let Ho read S-21 documents. So how many times he was implicated could not be told by me. It based on the practical situation during that period.
Mr. Witness, did the upper echelon take your work seriously? Did they take the confessions that you provided seriously? Isn't it true that many confessions were not taken seriously at all?
Thank you, Counsel. They would consider whether seriously or not based on whether or not they got other information to be used as a basis. and they would have to consider whether the documents or the confession I sent were feasible or could be used for the basis. Brother Perm was said in contact with the UN that was mentioned in various documents. So he was put under surveillance. Confessions from S21 were part of the justification, and whether they could be used depended on them after the people were arrested. People connected to Perm were arrested and information was gathered.
Mr. President, I'm coming to a new subject. Maybe this would be an appropriate time to break.
President, thank you. Council, thank you, Mr. Witness. It is now time for the adjournment today. The hearing will resume tomorrow on Tuesday, 21st June 2016 at 9 a.m. Please be informed and please be on time as scheduled. I'm grateful to you, Mr. Kangayo alias Duch. The hearing of your testimony as a witness has not come to an end yet. You are therefore invited to come here and testify once again tomorrow. Security personnel are instructed to bring the two accused together with the witness back to the ECCC's detention facility and have them returned into the courtroom tomorrow before 9 a.m. That was the accused. And as for Kangayo, he should be brought into the courtroom at 9 a.m. in the morning. The court is now adjourned.